Terrifier 3 is a 2024 American Christmas supernatural slasher film written and directed by Damien Leone. The film features a talented cast, including Elliott, Fullam, Margaret and Florence, Bryce Johnson, Antonella Rose, Samantha Scafidi, and David Howard Thornton. It follows Sienna Shaw as she attempts to rebuild her life in the days leading up to Christmas while being pursued by Art the Clown, now aided by his new accomplice, a possessed Victoria Hayes. This sequel to Terrifier 2 continues the chilling narrative with an overarching story, allowing for deeper character development, particularly for Victoria, who was previously underdeveloped. Principal photography began in February 2024, with a budget of $2 million, and wrapped in April. Premiering at Fantastic Fest on September 19, 2024, and hitting theaters on October 11, 2024, Terrifier 3 has already garnered positive reviews and impressive box office numbers, making it the franchise's highest-grossing film in just 3 days. In the present, Art the Clown invades and brutally murders a family during Christmas. 5 years prior, after being decapitated by Sienna Shaw, Art's headless body makes its way to the asylum where survivor Victoria Hayes, now possessed by the little pale girl, has just given birth to his head. They kill a nurse and a guard before fleeing to an abandoned house. Victoria smashes her face into a bathroom mirror and uses a glass shard to enter hibernation in a bathtub, and Art sits in a rocking chair in the attic. The two become dormant. In the present, Sienna is released from a hospital to stay with her Aunt Jess, who lives with her husband Greg, and their daughter Gabby, who idolizes Sienna but has no knowledge of the events. Sienna is suffering from survivor guilt and frequently has hallucinations of her deceased best friend Brooke, whose death she feels responsible for. She struggles to reconnect with her younger brother Jonathan, who is now in college trying to move on with his life. Art and Victoria are woken from their slumber when two workers stumble upon their bodies in the house. The duo kills the workers, and Victoria begins working on a costume, while Art ventures off on another killing spree. Art meets a Santa Claus impersonator at a bar and murders him and other patrons. Art then impersonates a Santa at a local shopping mall and uses explosives disguised as gifts to slaughter several shoppers, including children. Sienna sees Art at the mall before the explosion, but her family does not believe her. Sienna visits Jonathan at his university, where she meets Jonathan's roommate Cole and his girlfriend Mia, who hosts a true crime podcast. Mia pressures Sienna and Jonathan to participate in an interview about the Miles County massacre, but Sienna refuses. Sienna confesses to Jonathan that she thinks Art is still alive, showing him letters he wrote to her while she was in the psychiatric hospital stating demons can be reborn through a host, like Victoria. She also tells Jonathan she plans to return to the Terrifier haunted attraction to retrieve her father's sword. Art arrives at the university and kills Cole and Mia with a chainsaw while they are having sex in the showers. Sienna learns about the mall killings on the news and panics. Greg leaves to collect Jonathan while Sienna falls asleep. She dreams about the angels crafting her angel warrior costume. She wakes to find Art and Victoria, now dressed in a clown costume, have invaded her home, and Art incapacitates her with a mallet. As Sienna regains consciousness, she sees Greg's body pinned to the wall, and Jess tied up across from her. Victoria shows them a skinned head consumed by rats, telling her it is Gabby's, and then Art kills Jess by hammering a tube down her throat, forcing the rats in her throat with a blowtorch. Art suddenly enters with Gabby as a hostage, and Victoria reveals to Sienna that the head is Jonathan's. Victoria places a crown of thorns on Sienna's head and tries to possess her, but she resists and manages to open a gift, stabbing Victoria with its contents, her father's sword. Sienna decapitates Victoria, who disintegrates. Art attacks Sienna with his chainsaw, but she gains the upper hand. Victoria's blood burns through the floor and creates a portal to hell. Gabby falls and holds on to the edge, and Sienna leaves Art behind to save her. Sienna fails to save her, and Gabby falls into the abyss with the sword. Art flees through a window and boards a bus while Sienna vows to find and rescue Gabby. Terrifier 3, a deep dive into the cast. David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown. David Howard Thornton reprises his chilling role as Art the Clown, a character that has become a modern horror icon in the Terrifier franchise. Art is the personification of fear and sadism, exhibiting a grotesque yet oddly comedic demeanor. Thornton's portrayal of Art has become essential to the franchise's success, with his silent yet terrifying performance setting him apart from traditional horror villains. In Terrifier 3, Art continues his reign of terror, evolving as an even more dangerous and mysterious entity. With no dialogue and only his exaggerated expressions, Thornton elevates Art into a nightmare that defies explanation. His use of physicality, similar to classic silent film actors, adds a unique layer to the character's brutality, making his actions even more unsettling. Lauren Lavera as Sienna Shaw. Lauren Lavera returns as Sienna Shaw, the franchise's new heroine, after her gripping performance in Terrifier 2. In this installment, Sienna is a character burdened by survivor's guilt after her encounter with Art, and her struggles with trauma are central to the film. She plays an essential role in the plot as she tries to rebuild her life following the death of her best friend, Brooke, and her violent confrontation with Art. Lavera's portrayal gives Sienna a strong, complex emotional core, as she must confront her own fears and navigate her fractured relationship with her younger brother, Jonathan. Her journey in Terrifier 3 reveals her as a more determined and focused character, prepared to face Art and his twisted accomplice, Victoria. Luciana Elisa Quiñones as young Sienna. Luciana Elisa Quiñones plays young Sienna, giving the audience a glimpse into Sienna's earlier life. This helps contextualize her current emotional state, and serves as a flashback element that ties into the trauma Sienna now carries. Quiñones captures the innocence and curiosity of Sienna's youth, which contrasts sharply with the nightmare Sienna will later face. Elliott Fullam as Jonathan Shaw. Elliott Fullam portrays Jonathan Shaw, Sienna's younger brother who is now in college and trying to move forward with his life. Jonathan's character is much more developed in Terrifier 3, evolving from a secondary figure to one of central importance. As someone who witnessed the carnage inflicted by Art in the previous film, Jonathan struggles to cope with his own trauma, but he is also skeptical of Sienna's growing paranoia. Fullam's portrayal shows the character wrestling with his disbelief and his lingering fear, making him more than just a passive victim. His protective instincts towards Sienna, mixed with his personal desire to move on, make his relationship with his sister one of the emotional anchors of the film. Samantha Scafidi as Victoria Hayes. Samantha Scafidi reprises her role as Victoria Hayes, now serving as Art's possessed partner in crime. Victoria, the sole survivor of the first film, is transformed into something far more dangerous in Terrifier 3. Scafidi's performance is haunting as she shifts between her previous vulnerability and her new sinister persona. Possessed by the little pale girl, Victoria becomes a deranged and vengeful character who now fully embraces the darkness that Art embodies. Scafidi brings complexity to the role, balancing both the terror she experiences and the menace she now embodies, making Victoria a perfect foil to Sienna. This transformation also allows Scafidi to expand her character from a victim into a formidable villain in her own right. Margaret and Florence as Jess Shaw. Margaret and Florence plays Jess Shaw, the aunt of Sienna and Jonathan. Jess is a stabilizing figure in Sienna's life as she helps her niece recover from her hospital stay and process her trauma. Florence portrays Jess as a protective, nurturing character, but her family is unaware of the horrors lurking in Sienna's past. The introduction of Jess adds a layer of family drama to the film, grounding the supernatural and violent events in a more relatable, domestic setting. Bryce Johnson as Greg Shaw. Bryce Johnson plays Greg Shaw, Jess' husband and the father of Gabby. Greg represents a typical family man, someone trying to maintain normalcy despite the unsettling occurrences surrounding his niece. As the film progresses, Greg's desire to protect his family is tested by the horrors brought by Art and Victoria. His character provides additional emotional weight to the familial dynamic as the film shows the lengths he goes to protect those he loves. Antonella Rose as Gabby Shaw. Antonella Rose portrays Gabby, the young daughter of Jess and Greg. Gabby idolizes Sienna, unaware of the traumatic experiences that haunt her aunt. Gabby's innocence contrasts with the darkness of the events unfolding around her, making her character a symbol of the purity that is threatened by Art and Victoria's violent actions. Rose's portrayal adds tension to the film as her character becomes embroiled in the terrifying events against her will. Chris Jericho as Burke. Professional wrestler Chris Jericho takes on the role of Burke, an orderly working in the Miles County Psychiatric Hospital. His appearance in the film may surprise some viewers, but Jericho brings a rugged charm to the role. While not a central character, Burke's presence in the hospital scenes adds a layer of intrigue to the setting, and Jericho's tough persona fits well with the intensity of the film. Daniel Roebuck as Santa Claus. Veteran actor Daniel Roebuck makes a brief but memorable appearance as a Santa Claus impersonator who crosses paths with Art the Clown. Roebuck's role is a bit of dark humor, as his portrayal of Santa serves as a stark contrast to the grisly violence that follows. His character's encounter with Art highlights the macabre and twisted atmosphere that permeates the film. Tom Savini as a bystander. Horror makeup legend Tom Savini has a small cameo as a bystander. Savini's inclusion is a nod to horror fans, as his work in special effects and makeup has been influential in shaping modern horror cinema. While his role is minor, his presence pays homage to the genre's rich history, and his involvement is sure to delight longtime fans of horror films. Jason Patric as Michael Shaw. Jason Patric plays Michael Shaw, Sienna and Jonathan's deceased father. While Michael is no longer alive during the events of the film, his influence looms large, particularly in the flashbacks and in Sienna's memories. His death plays a crucial role in Sienna's psychological state, and Patrick's portrayal of Michael helps shape the emotional backdrop of the Shaw family's history. KRSY Fox as Jennifer. KRSY Fox plays Jennifer, though her role is relatively minor. Jennifer appears briefly as a bystander who gets caught up in Art's killing spree, showcasing the wider impact of Art's reign of terror on the general public. Alexa Blair Robertson as Mia. Alexa Blair Robertson portrays Mia, Cole's girlfriend and an obsessive true crime enthusiast. Mia's fixation on the Miles County massacre leads her to push for an interview with Sienna and Jonathan. Robertson's portrayal of Mia adds depth to the film's exploration of how trauma is consumed and commodified by true crime culture. Mason McCarthy as Cole. Mason McCarthy plays Cole, Jonathan's dorm mate, who becomes one of Art's victims. While his role is primarily as a secondary character, McCarthy's portrayal contributes to the film's overall atmosphere of dread, as the body count rises. Stephen Cofield Jr. as Officer Evans. Stephen Cofield Jr. plays Officer Evans, a law enforcement figure who becomes entangled in Art's chaos. While not a main character, Evans represents the ineffectiveness of authority figures in dealing with supernatural threats like Art. Clint Howard as Smokey. Clint Howard appears in a minor role as Smokey, a local character who briefly encounters the chaos of Art's rampage. Howard's appearance adds a quirky charm to the cast, continuing his tradition of memorable roles in cult horror films. Annie Letterman as Graven Image co-host. Comedian Annie Letterman appears as a co-host of a podcast that covers true crime, adding a contemporary touch to the film's narrative. Her character reflects the modern obsession with true crime and the media's fascination with violent events like the Miles County Massacre. Bradley Stryker as Eddie. Bradley Stryker plays Eddie, a character who becomes another victim of Art's gruesome spree. Though a smaller role, Stryker's performance adds to the tension and stakes of the film. John Abrahams as Dennis. John Abrahams plays Dennis, another minor character who contributes to the film's body count. His role serves to emphasize the reach of Art's violence across the community. Phil Falcone as Tom the bus driver. Phil Falcone takes on the role of Tom, the bus driver who unwittingly transports Art as he flees from his latest massacre. His role adds a brief but pivotal moment towards the film's climax, as Art makes his getaway. Kaylee Hyman as Brooke. Kaylee Hyman returns as Brooke, Sienna's deceased best friend, who appears as a hallucination to haunt Sienna throughout the film. Her presence reminds Sienna of the guilt and loss she carries, adding a psychological layer to the film's horror. The production of Terrifier 3 marks a significant leap forward for the franchise, with creator and director Damien Leone at the helm once again. Known for his work on the previous Terrifier films, Leone's creative vision has driven the series into new territories of horror. This latest installment brings a fresh layer of complexity and scale to the franchise, with Leone taking the opportunity to expand the narrative, further develop characters, and pushed the boundaries of the slasher genre. The film's production process, casting choices, and technical decisions illustrate a remarkable evolution for both the filmmaker and the series. The development of Victoria Hayes, a central focus. One of the standout elements of Terrifier 3 is the expanded role of Victoria Hayes, portrayed by Samantha Scafidi. Victoria, once the heroine of the first Terrifier film, has transformed into a central villainess in this sequel. Leone, who expressed regret over her underdevelopment in the 2016 film, sought to rectify that in Terrifier 3. In earlier drafts, Victoria was supposed to meet her demise early in the film. However, Leone reconsidered this decision, citing similarities with the plot of *Malignant*, 2021, where a character's dual identity plays a central role. He ultimately opted to give Victoria a more significant narrative arc and deeper character development, transforming her into a key figure in Art the Clown's twisted world. Scafidi's role in Terrifier 3 goes far beyond that of a typical horror movie antagonist. Her character's descent into madness, driven by possession by the little pale girl, provides a psychological dimension to the film, complementing Art's physical brutality. By keeping Victoria alive and exploring her character's transformation, Leone taps into the fear of losing one's humanity, making her journey in the film more profound and terrifying. Scafidi's performance as Victoria adds emotional weight to the horror, elevating the film from a simple slasher to something more psychologically unsettling. Casting decisions, expanding the world of Terrifier. Casting was another area where Terrifier 3 distinguished itself from its predecessors. In December 2023, it was confirmed that professional wrestler and actor Chris Jericho would join the cast. His role as Burke, an orderly in the Miles County Psychiatric Hospital, brings a rugged and charismatic energy to the film. Jericho, known for his intense on-screen presence, fits seamlessly into Leone's brutal and chaotic world. While not a central character, his involvement brings additional star power to the franchise and appeals to both horror fans and wrestling enthusiasts alike. Another major casting announcement came in April 2024 when it was revealed that veteran actor Daniel Roebuck would appear as a Santa Claus impersonator. Roebuck's role injects dark humor into the film, as his portrayal of Santa contrasts sharply with the extreme violence perpetrated by Art the Clown. Roebuck, with his decades of acting experience, enhances the film's overall quality, adding a seasoned presence to the cast. Perhaps one of the most exciting casting decisions came in May 2024 when it was announced that legendary makeup artist and actor Tom Savini would make a cameo appearance in Terrifier 3. Known for his groundbreaking special effects work in horror films like Dawn of the Dead, 1978, and Friday the 13th, 1980, Savini's presence in the film serves as a homage to the horror genre's legacy. His small but significant role as a bystander adds to the film's nostalgic atmosphere and reminds audiences of the genre's roots. The addition of Jason Patric to the cast in June 2024 also brought it. With its intricate production process, well-rounded cast, and enhanced technical elements, Terrifier 3 solidifies the franchise's place in modern horror cinema. It is a testament to Damien Leone's dedication to pushing the boundaries of what indie horror can achieve, all while delivering a film that is both terrifying and emotionally resonant. Pre-production is one of the most critical phases in filmmaking, as it sets the foundation for everything that happens during the production and post-production stages. For Terrifier 3, the pre-production phase was especially crucial given its expanded scope, increased budget, and the development of characters and storyline. Director Damien Leone and the team put in substantial planning to ensure the film would build on the success of its predecessors while introducing new elements to captivate the audience. Conceptualization and story development. The initial concept for Terrifier 3 began shortly after the release of Terrifier 2. Director and writer Damien Leone felt that the story of Art the Clown, Victoria Hayes, and Sienna Shaw had more to offer in terms of horror, character development, and narrative complexity. Leone had always envisioned Terrifier as a franchise, and the success of the previous films gave him the confidence to push boundaries further with the third installment. One of the central ideas for Terrifier 3 was to focus more on Victoria Hayes, who had been underdeveloped in the earlier films. Leone felt that her transformation from a heroine to a villainess could add significant depth to the storyline. The decision to elevate her role and explore her relationship with Art the Clown created a complex dynamic that could give the film more emotional weight, rather than relying solely on the gore and shock factor that the series was known for. Leone also wanted to dive deeper into the mythology surrounding Art the Clown. Questions about Art's origins, his supernatural abilities, and his mysterious connection to Victoria and the little pale girl were some of the thematic elements the creative team explored during this phase. Leone took inspiration from other horror franchises where the antagonist becomes a larger-than-life figure, such as Michael Myers from Halloween or Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street. However, Leone aimed to create something unique, maintaining the gritty and low-budget roots of the series while expanding the universe. Casting and character development. With the characters of Art the Clown, Sienna Shaw, and Victoria Hayes already established, the casting process for Terrifier 3 was partially straightforward. David Howard Thornton, who had gained significant recognition for his portrayal of Art the Clown, was confirmed to reprise his role early in pre-production. His performance had become iconic in the horror genre, and his return was crucial to maintaining the continuity of the series. Lauren Lavera, who played Sienna Shaw, was also brought back, as her character was integral to the emotional core of the story. Her role in Terrifier 2 had won praise for being more than just a typical final girl, and Leone was eager to continue developing her character. In Terrifier 3, Sienna's survivor guilt and her battle with hallucinations would add psychological depth to the narrative, contrasting with the pure terror that Art the Clown represented. One of the most significant casting decisions was the return of Samantha Scafidi as Victoria Hayes. While Victoria's role was minor in the earlier films, her transformation into a villainous figure possessed by the little pale girl made her a central figure in Terrifier 3. Leone specifically wanted to keep working with Scafidi due to her versatility as an actress, and he saw this film as an opportunity to showcase her talent in a much more prominent role. In addition to the returning cast, several new characters were introduced. Chris Jericho, a professional wrestler and actor, was cast in the role of Burke, an orderly at the Miles County Psychiatric Hospital. Leone had been impressed with Jericho's screen presence and believed he could bring a fresh dynamic to the film. Other notable cast additions included Daniel Roebuck as Santa Claus, Tom Savini, Jason Patrick, and Antonella Rose. Each new character was carefully considered to fit within the expanded universe that Leone was building. Script writing and revisions. The script for Terrifier 3 went through several drafts during pre-production. Leone initially struggled with how to balance the horror and character development, especially when it came to Victoria Hayes. The original idea for the opening scene, which involved Victoria's demise, was scrapped because it felt too similar to the plot of *Malignant*, 2021. Instead, Leone opted to keep Victoria alive and allow her character to grow over the course of the film. Leone's experience with the previous two films helped him refine the script for Terrifier 3. He wanted to maintain the shocking brutality that fans had come to expect from the franchise while also providing more substance to the characters. The development of the little pale girl, Victoria's possession, and Sienna's journey were carefully interwoven into the narrative to create a more cohesive and engaging story. Leone also paid close attention to pacing, ensuring that the film's violent set pieces were balanced with quieter, more emotional moments. The film's supernatural elements, such as the portal to hell and the concept of rebirth through possession, were expanded upon during the scriptwriting process. Leone worked with the special effects team early on to ensure that these scenes would be visually stunning while staying true to the practical effects aesthetic of the previous films. The decision to use practical effects rather than CGI was important to Leone, as it contributed to the raw, visceral feeling of the Terrifier franchise. Budget and financing. One of the most significant changes for Terrifier 3 during pre-production was its budget. The first Terrifier film had been made on a shoestring budget of around $35,000, while Terrifier 2 had a modest increase to $250,000. For Terrifier 3, the budget skyrocketed to $2 million, which, while still low by Hollywood standards, represented a major increase for the franchise. This budget increase allowed for more elaborate set pieces, higher quality special effects, and the ability to cast well-known actors like Chris Jericho and Jason Patric. Leone was careful to maintain the indie spirit of the franchise despite the larger budget. He wanted to ensure that the increased funds were used to enhance the film's practical effects, which had been a hallmark of the series. The additional budget also allowed for more ambitious locations and set designs, contributing to the film's overall aesthetic. Pre-visualization and special effects planning. With the larger budget, Leone and his team were able to invest more in pre-visualization during the pre-production phase. Pre-visualization, or previs, involves creating detailed storyboards or digital models to map out complex scenes before they are shot. For Terrifier 3, this was particularly important for the film's more elaborate horror sequences, such as the scene where Victoria's blood burns through the floor and creates a portal to hell. The special effects team, led by Leone, began planning early for the film's numerous practical effects. Leone had a reputation for creating some of the most gruesome and realistic horror effects in the genre, and Terrifier 3 was no exception. The team spent months designing prosthetics, gore effects, and elaborate set pieces that would push the boundaries of what had been done in the previous films. The birth of Art's head, the chainsaw death scene in the showers, and the portal to hell were just a few of the scenes that required extensive planning and preparation. Location scouting and set design. Location scouting was another important aspect of pre-production. Leone wanted Terrifier 3 to have a distinct visual style that harkened back to classic horror films of the 1980s, particularly the work of John Carpenter. To achieve this, the production team scouted various locations in New York, where the film was primarily shot. Abandoned buildings, eerie forests, and small-town settings were chosen to create an atmosphere of isolation and dread. Set design was also a key component of the film's visual identity. The asylum where Victoria gives birth to Art's head, the abandoned house where Art and Victoria become dormant, and the haunted attraction where Sienna retrieves her father's sword were all meticulously designed to fit within the film's dark, surreal world. Leone worked closely with the production design team to ensure that every detail, from the lighting to the props, contributed to the film's unsettling atmosphere. Conclusion. Pre-production for Terrifier 3 was an extensive and meticulous process that laid the groundwork for the film's success. From conceptualizing the story to casting, script development, budgeting, and planning the film's practical effects, every aspect of pre-production was carefully considered. Damien Leone's dedication to expanding the Terrifier universe while staying true to its roots ensured that the film would deliver the horror, gore, and character development that fans had come to expect. The increased budget allowed for more ambitious filmmaking, but Leone's commitment to practical effects and indie filmmaking ensured that Terrifier 3 retained the raw, visceral style that had made the franchise a cult favorite. The release of Terrifier 3 marked a significant moment for the franchise, building on the success and notoriety of its predecessors while expanding its reach within the horror genre. The film's distribution and marketing strategies were carefully crafted to ensure that it reached a wide audience, capitalizing on the growing popularity of the Terrifier series. Theatrical release. Terrifier 3 was theatrically released in the United States on October 11, 2024. Cineverse, a prominent distributor, acquired the distribution rights in June 2023 and set the film for a wide release. The decision to move the release date from October 25 to October 11 was made in May 2024, allowing the film to capitalize on the Halloween season, a prime time for horror releases. This strategic timing was likely aimed at drawing in both existing fans and newcomers to the franchise. World premiere. The film had its world premiere on September 19, 2024, during the opening night of the 2024 Fantastic Fest, a renowned film festival that celebrates genre cinema. Premiering at such a prestigious festival not only generated buzz but also positioned the film favorably within the horror community. Fantastic Fest is known for showcasing cutting-edge and innovative films, which aligned well with Terrifier 3's ambitious approach to storytelling and horror. Special screening events. In an exciting twist for fans, Terrifier 3 was presented as a double feature in select AMC theaters, screening alongside Terrifier 2. This unique event allowed audiences to experience the entire Terrifier saga in one sitting, reinforcing the film's connection to its predecessors and enhancing the viewing experience. Following the film, audiences were treated to a music video presentation of the official song, A Work of Art, by Ice Nine Kills, featuring System of a Down bassist Shavo Odagian. The inclusion of a live performance element added to the cinematic experience, merging music and horror in a way that appealed to fans of both mediums. Marketing strategy. Cineverse invested significantly in marketing Terrifier 3, spending under $5 million to acquire and promote the film. The marketing campaign focused on reaching Cineverse's bloody disgusting fanbase and the 80 million streaming subscribers across 30 channels. This targeted approach allowed the film to build momentum leading up to its release, leveraging existing fan enthusiasm for the franchise. The marketing strategy also included the release of A Work of Art as a single, coinciding with the film's theatrical release. The song's themes and energy were designed to resonate with the horror elements of the film, further bridging the gap between the movie and its promotional material. By integrating music into the marketing, Cineverse aimed to create a more immersive experience for fans. Streaming debut. In addition to its theatrical release, Terrifier 3 had an exclusive streaming debut on Cineverse Screambox service. This dual-release strategy allowed fans who might not be able to attend theaters to still engage with the film shortly after its theatrical run. The availability on a streaming platform catered to the growing trend of viewers seeking horror content online, making it easier for them to access the film and fostering a sense of community among fans. Reception and impact. The release of Terrifier 3 was anticipated not only for its horror content but also for its cultural significance within the genre. The Terrifier franchise has developed a dedicated following, with fans eagerly awaiting each new installment. By positioning Terrifier 3 as part of a broader cultural event through special screenings and festival premieres, Cineverse effectively elevated the film's profile. As the film hit theaters, audiences were eager to see how it would expand upon the storylines and characters established in previous films. The blend of extreme horror with deeper character development, particularly in the case of Victoria Hayes, was expected to generate discussions and reviews that would further enhance the film's visibility. The release of Terrifier 3 was meticulously planned to maximize its impact within the horror genre. From its strategic theatrical release date to the innovative marketing strategies and special screening events, every aspect of the film's launch was designed to engage and excite audiences. By leveraging its established fanbase and exploring new avenues such as streaming and musical collaborations, Terrifier 3 aimed to solidify its place in the annals of modern horror cinema, setting the stage for the future of the franchise. Terrifier 3 has seen a remarkable reception since its release, achieving significant box office success both in the United States and internationally. As of October 14, 2024, the film has grossed approximately $21.5 million in the United States and Canada and an additional $1.8 million in other territories, bringing its worldwide total to $23.3 million. This performance highlights the film's strong appeal, especially for an independent horror project. Box office performance in the United States and Canada. Upon its release on October 11, 2024, Terrifier 3 was positioned against several other films, including Piece by Piece, The Apprentice, My Hero Academia, You're Next, and the expanded release of Saturday Night. The initial projections for the film's opening weekend ranged between $10 million to $11 million, with some estimates suggesting a higher potential of $12 million to $18 million. On its opening day, Terrifier 3 grossed $8.2 million, which included approximately $2.6 million from Thursday night previews. The film went on to debut with an impressive $18.9 million, securing the top spot at the box office. This debut not only reflects the film's strong following but also marks a significant achievement for an indie horror film, as it outperformed Joker, Folie à Deux, a major DC Comics release that had been dominating the box office. The success of Terrifier 3 is particularly noteworthy given the competitive landscape of the film industry, where independent films often struggle against larger studio productions. Its ability to resonate with audiences and attract viewers in significant numbers speaks volumes about the franchise's dedicated fanbase and the effectiveness of its marketing strategy. International performance. The film also enjoyed a strong international showing. In France, Terrifier 3 opened at number 1 at the box office on its first day, drawing 45,000 admissions and surpassing other contemporary horror films like Saw X, 35,000 admissions, and Smile, 33,000 admissions. This immediate success in the French market demonstrates the film's appeal beyond American borders and highlights the global interest in horror cinema. In Poland, the film's reception was similarly robust, selling nearly 140,000 tickets during its opening weekend. Such impressive ticket sales in various international markets underline the film's growing reputation and the effectiveness of its horror elements, which resonate across different cultures. Factors contributing to reception. Several factors contributed to Terrifier 3's successful reception. 1. Established fanbase. Building on the success of the previous films, Terrifier 3 capitalized on an already dedicated fanbase eager for the next installment of the franchise. 2. Marketing strategy. The strategic marketing campaign, including promotional events like double features and music video presentations, effectively generated buzz and excitement around the film. 3. Timing of release. Releasing the film during the Halloween season, a peak time for horror film viewership, helped maximize its audience reach. 4. Critical reception. While box office figures are significant, critical reception and audience reviews often play a crucial role in a film's longevity. Early reviews highlighted Terrifier 3's blend of extreme horror with deeper character development, particularly the evolution of Victoria Hayes as a character. The box office performance of Terrifier 3 indicates that the film not only met but exceeded expectations, securing its place within the competitive horror genre. With its successful launch and growing international appeal, Terrifier 3 is well positioned to continue captivating audiences and contributing to the evolving landscape of independent horror films. The franchise's unique blend of creativity, character development, and gruesome horror elements ensures that it remains a noteworthy player in contemporary cinema, leaving fans excited for what may come next in the Terrifier saga. Terrifier 3, a comprehensive storyline. Prologue, a grim awakening. The film opens on a dark and cold Christmas night, where the chaotic and macabre world of Terrifier is reintroduced. Art the Clown, a sinister figure known for his gruesome antics, invades a family home, ruthlessly slaughtering the family in a horrific display of violence. This sets the tone for the horror that is about to unfold, anchoring the narrative in a chilling atmosphere of dread. 5 years earlier, we witnessed the aftermath of a brutal confrontation between Art and Sienna Shaw, who decapitated him in the previous film. However, Art's headless body manages to find its way to a psychiatric asylum where Victoria Hayes, a survivor from the first film, is confined. Possessed by the little pale girl, Victoria has recently given birth to Art's head, establishing a grotesque bond between them. Together, they escape from the asylum, leaving a bloody trail in their wake as they seek refuge in an abandoned house. In a haunting and surreal moment, Victoria smashes her face against a bathroom mirror, using a shard of glass to enter a state of hibernation in a bathtub. Meanwhile, Art finds solace in an attic rocking chair, both characters becoming dormant as they plot their return. Act 1. The return to normalcy. Fast forward to the present day, Sienna Shaw is released from a psychiatric hospital where she had been receiving treatment for survivor's guilt following her traumatic experiences. She moves in with her aunt Jess, her husband Greg, and their young daughter Gabby. Gabby idolizes Sienna, completely unaware of the horrors that have shaped her sister's life. Sienna struggles with flashbacks of her deceased best friend Brooke, whose death haunts her conscience, adding layers of psychological turmoil to her character. Sienna's younger brother, Jonathan, is now in college and is attempting to lead a normal life, distanced from the horrors of their past. However, he still feels the weight of his sister's experiences. As Sienna attempts to reconnect with Jonathan, her unresolved trauma complicates their relationship, setting the stage for further tension. Act 2. Unleashing the horror. The dormant horrors are awakened when two unsuspecting workers stumble upon Art and Victoria's hiding place. Upon their discovery, Art and Victoria spring back to life, swiftly killing the workers. Victoria starts crafting a new costume, marking her transformation into a villainous counterpart to Art. Meanwhile, Art embarks on a killing spree, leaving a trail of bloodshed. The film takes a dark turn as Art targets a bar, impersonating a Santa Claus to murder patrons indiscriminately. This sets the tone for the holiday-themed carnage that ensues. Sienna witnesses Art's presence at a shopping mall, but her family dismisses her claims, deepening her feelings of isolation and paranoia. Sienna's attempts to reconnect with Jonathan lead her to his university, where she meets his roommate Cole and his girlfriend Mia. Mia, an ambitious true crime podcaster, pressures Sienna and Jonathan into discussing the Miles County massacre. Sienna's refusal reflects her struggle with the past, as she is haunted by her experiences with Art. The urgency of the situation grows as Art arrives at the university, brutally killing Cole and Mia in a gruesome shower scene. This shocking act escalates the tension and urgency for Sienna and Jonathan. Act 3: The inescapable return of Art. The chaos spirals further when Sienna learns about the mall killings through news reports. Fear grips her as she struggles to piece together the horrifying events unfolding around her. Greg leaves to fetch Jonathan, leaving Sienna home alone. In a fit of exhaustion, Sienna dreams of the angels crafting her angel warrior costume, symbolizing her internal struggle and her hope for redemption. Sienna's nightmare escalates as she awakens to find Art and Victoria have invaded her home. Art incapacitates her with a brutal blow, and when she regains consciousness, she finds herself surrounded by the gruesome remnants of her family. Victoria reveals the horrific fate of Gabby, taunting Sienna with the knowledge of her niece's demise. The tension peaks as Art executes Jess in a horrifying manner, solidifying his role as an unstoppable force of evil. In this pivotal moment, Sienna confronts her fears and decides to fight back. She opens a gift that contains her father's sword, using it to stab Victoria, decapitating her. This act of rebellion symbolizes Sienna's reclaiming of her agency, and the beginning of her journey to confront the darkness that has plagued her family. Act 4: The battle against evil. As Art attacks Sienna with a chainsaw, she fights back fiercely. Victoria's blood seeps through the floor, creating a portal to hell, representing the depths of horror that Art embodies. Sienna's determination to save Gabby leads her into a dangerous showdown. However, the confrontation takes a tragic turn as Gabby falls into the abyss, an event that shatters Sienna's hopes of rescue. Despite leaving Art behind, Sienna's sense of responsibility weighs heavily on her. This act of sacrifice encapsulates her growth as a character. She has transformed from a victim to a warrior. The film concludes with Art fleeing through a window, hinting at the cycle of violence continuing. Sienna's vow to find and rescue Gabby solidifies her resolve and sets up the possibility for future installments in the franchise. Epilogue: The cycle of horror continues. The ending serves as a poignant reflection on trauma and the cyclical nature of evil. Sienna's journey is far from over, as she now faces the aftermath of her choices and the darkness that still looms over her family. The film closes with a sense of foreboding, leaving audiences to ponder the nature of fear, survival, and the potential for redemption in a world plagued by horror. Themes and character arcs. Terrifier 3 explores several themes, including survivor's guilt. Sienna's character grapples with the weight of her past, illustrating the psychological ramifications of surviving trauma. Her interactions with Jonathan highlight the complexity of familial relationships strained by horrific events. The nature of evil. Art serves as a representation of unrelenting evil, his character embodying the idea that some horrors cannot be escaped. Victoria's transformation from survivor to villain underscores the theme that trauma can distort one's sense of self and morality. Sacrifice and redemption. Sienna's journey reflects the struggle for redemption amidst chaos. Her ultimate sacrifice to save Gabby showcases her growth and the desire to protect those she loves, even at great personal cost. The cycle of violence. The film concludes with a sense of inevitability regarding the continuation of horror, suggesting that while one battle may be won, the war against evil is ongoing. Through these themes and character arcs, Terrifier 3 adds depth to the franchise, engaging audiences with a narrative that is both chilling and thought-provoking. The combination of visceral horror and emotional complexity sets the stage for a continuation of Sienna's story, leaving viewers eagerly anticipating the next chapter in the saga of Art the Clown. Terrifier 3 undoubtedly delivers on the blood-soaked promises of its predecessors, appealing to fans of the franchise who revel in the unabashed gore and visceral thrills. From its gruesome opening scenes to the relentless carnage that unfolds throughout, the film stays true to its roots, amplifying the horror elements that have become a hallmark of the series. However, the film's graphic violence and cruel depictions of death may be off-putting to viewers who expect more than just shock value. For some, the relentless brutality might overshadow any potential character development or thematic depth, leading to a viewing experience that feels excessively cruel rather than thrilling. The film's commitment to horror can be both a strength and a limitation. While dedicated fans will appreciate the unfiltered gore, those seeking a more nuanced narrative or emotional resonance might find the experience lacking. The extreme violence could detract from the storyline, making it challenging for viewers to connect with the characters or invest in their journeys. Ultimately, Terrifier 3 caters to a specific audience, those who crave intense horror without compromise. It is a film that pushes boundaries, but its excessive nature might alienate those looking for a more balanced blend of horror, character exploration, and thematic substance. For dedicated fans, it's a bloody spectacle that exceeds expectations. For others, it may feel like a cruel exercise in endurance rather than a fulfilling cinematic experience. I'm going to start this review with a sentence I don't think even director Damien Leone would expect anyone to say. Terrifier 3 has left me with a lot to think about emotionally. This is the third installment in Leone's Terrifier series, a set of slasher films centered around Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton, and his rampage of horror. Above all else, these movies are notorious for pushing the boundaries of how bloody, gory, and cruel their violence can get, which is what drew my attention to them. In Terrifier 3, we rejoin with Sienna's Shaw, Lauren Lavera, 5 years after her defeat of Art in the last movie. She and her brother Jonathan, Elliott Fullam, are still struggling with the trauma of those attacks, with Sienna unconvinced that the war is truly over. Surely enough, Art is back from the dead with his mutilated victim-turned-partner Victoria Hayes, Samantha Scafidi, to once again paint the town red, pink, and whatever other colors can exist inside a human body. Oh, and it's Christmas. Because we needed a new bloody Christmas movie that makes Die Hard look like a Rankin/Bass special, I guess. To make things as simple as possible, if you're a fan of the Terrifier movies, you're probably going to be a fan of Terrifier 3. If they're not your thing, I seriously doubt this one will win you over. I can't deny that this movie gives you exactly what it's promising: insane, grotesque, shocking kills unlike anything I've ever seen. If you don't at least flinch once while watching, you're probably as deranged as Art himself. As these movies get more money behind them, that money goes right back on the screen with some of the juiciest, pulpiest, detailed in-camera gore ever shot. Nothing is held back here. You will believe a man's face can indeed be pulled over his head. It only gets worse from there, folks. At the center is obviously Art the Clown, who's become a new Halloween icon for both his deeds and Thornton's work in the role. Art is as far removed from the stiffness offs as possible. He's playful, childish, eccentric, and inquisitive while remaining intimidating, and it's Thornton's heavily physical performance that fully transforms him into the unforgettable psycho. But just as much credit needs to go to Lauren Lavera. She has twice now stepped up to the plate with a raw, layered performance that holds your attention just as much as the kills. Every ounce of investment I have in the story of Terrifier 3 is entirely on her shoulders, even as the film around her feels like it's actively trying to lose me. Here's something you need to know about me if you didn't already: I love horror as a genre. I love creative, intense bloodshed and horror that makes me uncomfortable. I'm the same guy who said that was too tame for the series it's in. It's extremely rare that I find myself wishing a film could dial itself back in that regard, yet that's exactly what happened with Terrifier 3. Not because the gore on its own was too much for me, but because the story, and the directing are so relentlessly, gratuitously cruel with nothing to make that cruelty worth sitting through. Most people go into slasher flicks to have fun. The bloodshed is fun for them, and I can usually say the same for myself. But at no point in Terrifier 3, or the other movies, did I think to myself, this is fun. I'm having an enjoyable time watching this, due to the tangible grisliness of its violence. But the movie also has a very prominent sense of humor even in its bleakest moments, so it's clearly trying to be fun. While that contrast is clearly the appeal for many, it comes across to me like the movie isn't even aware of how genuinely nasty it's being to its own characters. Terrifier 3 explores Sienna's trauma and anguish very effectively for a while, but as soon as she's thrust back into the bloodshed, what does that matter? What are we gaining by watching that when it's clearly just a gateway to savagely tear her back down for the sake of more splatter? It's not like Terrifier 3 has a proper ending anyway, since it ends on a cliffhanger after having advanced the overall plot of the series by an inch. I was fed up by how blatantly Terrifier 2 leaves threads dangling for another movie, and I'm even more fed up now that we're 3 movies in and are still stuck with such vaguely defined, nonsensical world building that could have easily been beefed up had we not wasted time on so many gory sequences that mean nothing to the plot. I know the obvious response to all this: it's a slasher movie. Of course it's gratuitous, and of course it's not story-driven. If that bothers you so much, why are you watching it in the first place? And yeah, I can't defend against those points. When it comes to movies, I've always been a story-driven person above all else, no matter what the genre is. For all the blood and intestines flying everywhere, I was most drawn to the turmoil in Sienna's own mind. Leone is surprisingly really good at plunging you into a realm of discomfort and dread, even from a purely psychological angle. But when the transition is then made to the torture porn this series has always gleefully been, the balancing act just doesn't work for me. Despite all of that, however, I'm actually glad I saw Terrifier 3. I meant it when I said it gave me a lot to think about, because it made me realize that, for all my love of dark and disturbing stories, I still have my own limits. I've now realized that it's possible for me to find something too intensely cruel and gory when that's all it has going for it. I've realized that I'm always going to look at story and tone first and foremost, and that I can't turn that part of myself off even when I want to. Objectively, I can't call this a bad movie, but it's the final confirmation that this franchise is not for me. That's not something I would have expected given my usual tastes, but in a strange way, I'm comforted to say that Terrifier 2 has solidified its place in the annals of modern horror as a quintessential offering for gore enthusiasts and fans of slasher films. Director Damien Leone's sequel not only ups the ante with its unrestrained carnage, but also pays homage to the B-horror genre that has long captivated audiences. While the narrative may lack coherence and occasionally tip into absurdity, the film compensates with an abundance of creative and meticulously executed practical effects, leaving viewers with a bloody feast that feels both exhilarating and repulsive. Art the Clown, a unique horror villain. Art the Clown, portrayed by David Howard Thornton, is a character that breaks the mold of traditional horror villains. Unlike iconic figures such as Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Jason Voorhees, who have all become ingrained in the fabric of horror culture, Art presents a refreshing yet horrifying presence. His silent demeanor and mime-like antics evoke genuine fear, transforming the archetype of a clown into something deeply unsettling. By eschewing dialogue, Art relies solely on his facial expressions and physicality, creating a chilling atmosphere that lingers long after the film ends. This unique portrayal is enhanced by Leone's direction, ensuring that Art is not merely a killer but a force of terror that looms large over the narrative. A blood-soaked narrative. The plot of Terrifier 2 picks up immediately after the events of the first film, reintroducing audiences to Art as he embarks on a new killing spree. The film opens with a grisly scene in a morgue, setting the tone for the bloodbath that follows. Art's weapon of choice includes a menagerie of instruments that amplify the grotesque nature of his kills. Scalpels, scissors, and even sulfuric acid make appearances as he ruthlessly dispatches victims. Despite its nonsensical plot, which weaves together various threads of character backstories and motivations. The film excels in delivering what fans of the franchise crave: intense, visceral horror. Leone embraces the absurdity of the narrative, crafting set pieces that showcase the extensive practical effects team's work, turning gruesome deaths into macabre spectacles that elicit both awe and disgust. This approach is reminiscent of classic B-horror films, where the emphasis on gore often overshadows coherent storytelling, and yet it resonates with audiences who appreciate the genre's roots. Creative and shocking sequences. Leone's creative vision shines through in the film's dream sequences, particularly one involving a childlike version of art. This figment of art's imagination heightens the surreal quality of the narrative, allowing for moments of twisted whimsy amid the horror. The incorporation of such sequences adds depth to Art's character while simultaneously highlighting the film's departure from conventional storytelling. The film's runtime of 2 hours and 18 minutes is noteworthy, as it grants Leone ample opportunity to explore various horror tropes and delve deeper into Art's character. Although some may find the length excessive, the pacing is surprisingly effective, with each scene escalating in intensity and gore. The visual storytelling, coupled with a chilling sound design, enhances the viewing experience, making it impossible to turn away even during the most graphic moments. A deeper look at characters. While Terrifier 2 is undoubtedly a showcase for Art the Clown, it also introduces compelling new characters, particularly Sienna Shaw, played by Lauren Lavera. Sienna serves as the film's final girl, and her character arc resonates with viewers as she grapples with loss and trauma. The relationship between Sienna and her younger brother, Jonathan, adds emotional stakes to the narrative, allowing audiences to connect with them amidst the chaos. Sienna's development is particularly noteworthy, as she transforms from a frightened young woman into a formidable force determined to confront the evil represented by Art. This dynamic is a marked improvement over the first film, which lacked a strong central character. The addition of depth to Sienna's character elevates the emotional impact of the film, making viewers care about her survival and ultimate confrontation with Art. The interplay between the siblings, coupled with their shared fear of Art, grounds the narrative and adds layers of complexity to the otherwise blood-soaked spectacle. The gore factor. Terrifier 2 revels in its over-the-top violence, delivering an abundance of gruesome set pieces that are both visually stunning and shockingly creative. The practical effects, executed with precision and artistry, showcase the capabilities of the horror genre to create visceral and memorable moments. From dismemberments to head explosions, each kill is meticulously crafted, eliciting reactions ranging from laughter to horror. The film's commitment to practical effects, rather than relying on CGI, harkens back to the golden age of horror, where tangible effects lent an air of realism to the most fantastical scenarios. Leone's dedication to creating convincing gore enhances the film's overall experience, as viewers are drawn into a world where the horror feels palpable and immediate. Balancing horror and humor. One of the film's surprising strengths is its self-awareness and incorporation of dark humor. The sequence in the Clown Cafe, where Art interacts with whimsical yet grotesque elements, exemplifies this balance. By juxtaposing the absurdity of the setting with Art's sinister presence, Leone creates moments of levity that serve as a counterpoint to the horror. This blend of humor and horror is reminiscent of cult classics from the 1980s, where the boundaries of the genre were pushed, resulting in films that were both entertaining and frightening. This self-awareness extends beyond specific scenes. It permeates the film's tone, allowing it to embrace its absurdity without losing sight of its horrific roots. Viewers are invited to revel in the chaos, knowing that they are in for an experience that doesn't take itself too seriously, even as it revels in the brutality of its content. Conclusion. In conclusion, Terrifier 2 is a thrilling and bloody spectacle that pushes the boundaries of modern horror. Its combination of practical effects, engaging characters, and dark humor make it a must-see for fans of the genre. While the narrative may falter at times, the film more than compensates with its unrelenting gore and the terrifying presence of Art the Clown. For those who appreciate horror that dares to be outrageous and unapologetically bloody, Terrifier 2 delivers a memorable experience that cements Art's status as a modern horror icon. There are bad movies, And then there's Terrifier 3, a festering pile of cinematic waste so atrocious that it's not only the worst of the year but one of the worst I've ever had the displeasure of sitting through. Damien Leone has crafted a film that feels like an exercise in futility, a desperate attempt to capitalize on the notoriety of its predecessors while failing to deliver even the most basic elements of coherent storytelling or engaging characters. Leone's attempt to bring Art the Clown back for another round of mindless carnage is a significant misstep. While the first two films had their share of over-the-top gore, they at least managed to provide a sense of excitement and novelty. In contrast, Terrifier 3 feels like a tired rehash, devoid of creativity and originality. The kills, once shocking and entertaining, now seem like a monotonous checklist of gore tropes, lacking the inventiveness that made the earlier entries memorable. It's remarkable how Leone, while technically more competent than Tommy Wiseau, whose The Room has achieved cult status for its unintentional humor, has managed to produce a film that feels utterly lifeless. Wiseau's ineptitude is entertaining in its absurdity, offering viewers a chance to revel in the chaos. Leone, however, comes across as a talentless, unimaginative hack who has somehow managed to churn out this brain-dead drivel masquerading as a horror film. Character development, pacing, and plot cohesion are abandoned entirely in Terrifier 3, leaving viewers with nothing but disjointed scenes strung together by increasingly outrageous violence. The dialogue is cringeworthy, the acting wooden, and the attempts at humor fall flat. Where once there was a semblance of a narrative, there now exists only a chaotic jumble of bloodshed that fails to engage or horrify. Ultimately, Terrifier 3 is not just a disappointment but an affront to horror fans and cinephiles alike. It's a glaring reminder that even within the genre of slasher films, where creativity can run rampant, there are limits to how far one can push an audience. In trying to outdo itself in terms of gore and shock value, Leone has produced a film that feels more like a chore than a thrilling ride. Save your time and money. This is one horror experience you can, and should, skip. There's literally nothing of substance to write about because, spoiler alert, there's no plot. The film stumbles from one absurd scene to the next without any semblance of narrative coherence. Every attempt to move the story forward is laughable at best and infuriating at worst. It's as if Damien Leone grabbed a handful of discarded ideas from a trash bin, threw them on the screen, and hoped something would stick. Spoiler alert, nothing does. This is 125 minutes of meandering nonsense, dressed up in lazy jump scares and superficial shock value, with no sense of direction or pacing. Each scene feels like a desperate attempt to shock the audience, yet the impact is lost when there's no emotional weight behind the carnage. The film relies heavily on gore to keep viewers engaged, but when that's all it has to offer, it quickly becomes tiresome. You'll spend the entire runtime wondering why you're still sitting there, questioning your life choices as you watch characters with little to no development flounder through disjointed scenarios that fail to build tension or intrigue. Instead of a gripping narrative, you get an incoherent jumble of grotesque imagery that feels more like a series of misguided sketches rather than a cohesive film. The jump scares, which could have provided some excitement, are executed with such laziness that they fall flat. There's no build-up, no atmosphere, just an over-reliance on cheap tricks that ultimately leave you feeling underwhelmed. It's as if Leone believes that throwing blood and guts at the screen will distract you from the utter lack of storytelling. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. In the end, Terrifier 3 is a frustrating experience that serves as a glaring reminder that horror films need more than just shock value to be effective. A well-crafted story and engaging characters are essential to draw the audience in, and this film misses the mark on every front. And let's talk about Art the Clown, David Howard Thornton, who was once at least a mildly interesting, menacing figure. In Terrifier 3, they gave him a sidekick. Yes, you heard that right. Because when a murderous clown isn't working, why not give him an equally annoying companion in the form of Victoria Hayes, the stitched-up resurrection of the first film's final girl? Her presence is supposed to add some new dynamic, but all it does is further strip away what little mystique Art had left. In fact, Art has become a hollow shell of his former self, a caricature of what made him remotely intriguing in the first place. There's no mystique left. He's just another tired, repetitive villain pulling the same tired tricks. He doesn't scare, he doesn't disturb, and worst of all, he doesn't surprise. The clown has become a parody of himself, going through the motions in a predictable slog of pointless violence and soulless mischief. Art used to have teeth, now he's gumming it. Speaking of violence, it's worth noting just how desperate this movie is to shock its audience. Terrifier 3 pushes its gore so hard, so relentlessly, that it reveals the cheapness beneath. The blood and guts feel less like a stylistic choice and more like a budget-saving trick. You can see the corners being cut, the shortcuts being taken. The over-the-top violence is meant to mask the film's other glaring deficiencies, but all it does is highlight them. Every so-called gruesome scene is so stretched out and exaggerated that it crosses the line from grotesque to downright cartoonish. The fact that we're supposed to be disturbed or impressed is laughable. If you're going to rely on gore to carry a horror film, at least make it look good, or at the very least, give us a reason to care. But we don't. The victims are bland, empty vessels we forget as soon as they're introduced. The carnage holds zero weight because we're given no reason to invest in these characters beyond their inevitable, meaningless slaughter. Leone has no sense of pacing. Every scene lingers too long, every kill overstays its welcome. He doesn't understand that the audience needs more than just buckets of blood. We need suspense, tension, character investment. But no, here we get nothing but empty spectacle, and not even good spectacle at that. It's a hollow, soulless excuse for a film. Fuck this thing. It blew. Terrifier 3 is a total failure, an irredeemable, mind-numbing experience that should be avoided at all costs. When you think Terrifier, you usually think Art the Clown and a whole lot of murder. And if there's one thing he's good at, it's the red stuff. The one issue I've always had with the Terrifier series is that it's always been lacking in narrative. It mostly felt like moving from kill to kill and trying to soak in the trauma of it all. The second one introduces more background, but it still doesn't feel like a cohesive story. Finally, Terrifier 3 feels like what the series was always meant to be. Terrifier 3 picks up 5 years after the events of 2, with the survivors just trying to live their lives. Sienna still has a lot of PTSD. And it only gets worse when she starts seeing Art the Clown yet again, and townsfolk start getting violently murdered. Her brother Jonathan is much more of a side character this time around, thank God, and we get a whole Christmas theme. Despite this, it doesn't feel overly holiday-themed, giving enough of its own identity to not solely be grouped as. This can definitely be watched at any time of the year. The entire opening sequence is ridiculously impressive. It's pretty much what you would expect from a slasher, but it ramps things up so quickly and heads firmly into "Did they just do that?" territory. It's one of many iconic scenes that puts shocking kills at the forefront, but makes sure not to skimp on the tension. There are great shots that fully utilize the Christmas atmosphere. The acting is much better this time around, with nearly everyone that returns improving their performances. There are some really funny cameos from the world of horror like Clint Howard, Tom Savini, Daniel Roebuck, and Jason Patric. I was skeptical about Art the Clown being touted as being a legendary horror villain, with so many limited appearances. But I'm finally starting to see it. David Howard Thornton brings some maniacal joy to Art that can't be matched. When Art isn't murdering, I love how much more lore is added to the series. They had just enough to give more of a clear image of his evil, without going overboard with origin. Art becomes more and more intriguing with every entry because there's still a layer of mystery surrounding him. One element I loved was the introduction of a girl obsessed with Art and his killings. There's a great moment where she talks all about Art's exploits as he gets giddy out in the hallway, hearing all of his achievements. Moments like that help to bring in the fun versus soaking in the traumatic moments. While there is certainly a fair share of brutal scenes, it's all presented in such an entertaining way. The setup and payoff are expertly handled. If I had to complain about anything, it's some of the stereotypical story beats. The fact that people still don't believe Sienna after all she's gone through results in nothing but frustration and annoyance. But it does make their murders all the more satisfying. There's also a child character that doesn't entirely work and I wish was excised completely. And I'd still argue there's no reason for a film like this to be over 2 hours long. Despite that, Terrifier 3 is a lot of fun. By not selling out to a studio, continues to be absolutely relentless in his pursuit of horrific murder. Art even takes aim at children this time, quite a few times, so this isn't for the sensitive. And that's precisely the kind of franchise the horror world needs right now. Your review captures the chaotic and intense experience of watching Terrifier 3 perfectly. Here's a polished version that maintains your original insights while enhancing clarity and flow. I caught the Terrifier 3 world premiere at Fantastic Fest 2024, and my brain has been chemically changed. Damien Leone has ramped up the carnage as we follow the surviving siblings trying to move forward after the last film's events when Art returns for more terror during the holidays. Terrifier 3 releases in theaters on October 11, 2024, and this ride is well worth the ticket. It's a bloody all-you-can-eat feast for the eyes. Damien Leone asked the crowd if they brought barf bags, and I should have brought mine. As a proud member of the Art the Clown fan club, I was already primed for buckets of blood, but Terrifier 3 unleashed an industrial vat of gore. The experience felt like a 2-hour Mortal Kombat Test Your Might minigame and a sporting event simultaneously. A rhythm of groans and gasps filled the theater as viewers battled with how much gore and guts they could handle in any given moment. As increasing amounts of viscera hit the screen, some audience members shifted in their seats and peeked through their eyes, while others clapped and cheered, welcoming the onslaught of ultra-violence. I floated between beckoning the blood and gritting my teeth, questioning if I could handle what I was asking for. Terrifier 3 stretched my stamina like an elastic band pulled taut. I felt exhausted within 15 minutes but was still eager for the ride. The primary draw for Terrifier movies is Art's antics, and he did not disappoint. David Howard Thornton excels at using physical comedy to give Art the humanity needed for the audience to find moments to laugh, even when he's just murdered someone's entire bloodline. I giggled at every interaction Art had involving Santa, or pretending to be Santa, even though it often meant imminent doom for the characters around him, kids included. Those characters' misfortunes become the kills we ultimately line up to see. It's a darkly playful balancing act, and Thornton as Art always pulls it off well. Leone has no sense of pacing. Every scene lingers too long, every kill overstays its welcome. He doesn't understand that the audience needs more than just buckets of blood. We need suspense, tension, character investment. But no, here we get nothing but empty spectacle, and not even good spectacle at that. It's a hollow, soulless excuse for a film. Fuck this thing. It blew. Terrifier 3 is a total failure, an irredeemable, mind-numbing experience that should be avoided at all costs. When you think Terrifier, you usually think Art the Clown and a whole lot of murder. And if there's one thing he's good at, it's the red stuff. The one issue I've always had with the Terrifier series is that it's always been lacking in narrative. It mostly felt like moving from kill to kill and trying to soak in the trauma of it all. The second one introduces more background, but it still doesn't feel like a cohesive story. Finally, Terrifier 3 feels like what the series was always meant to be. Terrifier 3 picks up 5 years after the events of 2, with the survivors just trying to live their lives. Sienna still has a lot of PTSD. And it only gets worse when she starts seeing Art the Clown yet again, and townsfolk start getting violently murdered. Her brother Jonathan is much more of a side character this time around, thank God, and we get a whole Christmas theme. Despite this, it doesn't feel overly holiday-themed, giving enough of its own identity to not solely be grouped as. This can definitely be watched at any time of the year. The entire opening sequence is ridiculously impressive. It's pretty much what you would expect from a slasher, but it ramps things up so quickly and heads firmly into "Did they just do that?" territory. It's one of many iconic scenes that puts shocking kills at the forefront, but makes sure not to skimp on the tension. There are great shots that fully utilize the Christmas atmosphere. The acting is much better this time around, with nearly everyone that returns improving their performances. There are some really funny cameos from the world of horror like Clint Howard, Tom Savini, Daniel Roebuck, and Jason Patric. I was skeptical about Art the Clown being touted as being a legendary horror villain, with so many limited appearances. But I'm finally starting to see it. David Howard Thornton brings some maniacal joy to art that can't be matched. When art isn't murdering, I love how much more lore is added to the series. They had just enough to give more of a clear image of his evil, without going overboard with origin. Art becomes more and more intriguing with every entry because there's still a layer of mystery surrounding him. One element I loved was the introduction of a girl obsessed with art and his killings. There's a great moment where she talks all about Art's exploits as he gets giddy out in the hallway, hearing all of his achievements. Moments like that help to bring in the fun versus soaking in the traumatic moments. While there is certainly a fair share of brutal scenes, it's all presented in such an entertaining way. The setup and payoff are expertly handled. If I had to complain about anything, it's some of the stereotypical story beats. The fact that people still don't believe Sienna after all she's gone through results in nothing but frustration and annoyance. But it does make their murders all the more satisfying. There's also a child character that doesn't entirely work and I wish was excised completely. And I'd still argue there's no reason for a film like this to be over 2 hours long. Despite that, Terrifier 3 is a lot of fun. By not selling out to a studio, continues to be absolutely relentless in his pursuit of horrific murder. Art even takes aim at children this time, quite a few times, so this isn't for the sensitive. And that's precisely the kind of franchise the horror world needs right now. Your review captures the chaotic and intense experience of watching Terrifier 3 perfectly. Here's a polished version that maintains your original insights while enhancing clarity and flow. I caught the Terrifier 3 world premiere at Fantastic Fest 2024, and my brain has been chemically changed. Damien Leone has ramped up the carnage as we follow the surviving siblings trying to move forward after the last film's events when Art returns for more terror during the holidays. Terrifier 3 releases in theaters on October 11, 2024, and this ride is well worth the ticket. It's a bloody all-you-can-eat feast for the eyes. Damien Leone asked the crowd if they brought barf bags, and I should have brought mine. As a proud member of the Art the Clown fan club, I was already primed for buckets of blood, but Terrifier 3 unleashed an industrial vat of gore. The experience felt like a 2-hour Mortal Kombat Test Your Might minigame and a sporting event simultaneously. A rhythm of groans and gasps filled the theater as viewers battled with how much gore and guts they could handle in any given moment. As increasing amounts of viscera hit the screen, some audience members shifted in their seats and peeked through their eyes, while others clapped and cheered, welcoming the onslaught of ultra-violence. I floated between beckoning the blood and gritting my teeth, questioning if I could handle what I was asking for. Terrifier 3 stretched my stamina like an elastic band pulled taut. I felt exhausted within 15 minutes but was still eager for the ride. The primary draw for Terrifier movies is Art's antics, and he did not disappoint. David Howard Thornton excels at using physical comedy to give Art the humanity needed for the audience to find moments to laugh, even when he's just murdered someone's entire bloodline. I giggled at every interaction Art had involving Santa, or pretending to be Santa, even though it often meant imminent doom for the characters around him, kids included. Those characters' misfortunes become the kills we ultimately line up to see. It's a darkly playful balancing act, and Thornton as Art always pulls it off well. If you're going to the theater solely for the kills, you will definitely get your fill and more. Terrifier 3 is far more brutal than the last film, with a higher body count and meaner kills. Yet the jolly Yuletide veneer helps maintain the playfulness. Expect an excess of removed and mutilated limbs, exposed teeth and jaws, glass in crevices, rusty chainsaws, and more. One of the kills seems like a deliberate response to a previous kill in the franchise. Damien Leone's use of rats makes me believe he has a personal vendetta against me. The violence put me in a submission hold, and I often found myself at the brink of tapping out. The runtime exacerbated that feeling. Horror fans will spot various campy nods to other iconic or cult horror films. The opening scene feels reminiscent of Silent Night, Deadly Night, featuring a nefarious Santa attacking a family, one of my favorite scenes. There's also a sequence that recalls House of Wax, 2005, where the intense fear behind a paralyzed face is palpable. A nod to The Shining involving an axe adds to the nostalgia, while Art's headless adventures echo The Reanimator. A special kill pays homage to one of my favorite Jason movies, though revealing which would spoil the surprise. Plus, fans will delight in a few cameos from horror icons. The special effects, holiday setting, and dark humor work well together. However, I'm still digesting Victoria's, Samantha Scafidi, storyline. Her dialogue felt over the top and excessive, which seemed out of place next to Art's silent demeanor. Additionally, Victoria participates in self-mutilation more than once, stressing me out more than many of the kills. I almost needed a barf bag for one of these scenes. Her segments lacked the balance of humor and violence. She was simply mean. Still, I appreciated that she matched Art's freakishness. I saw value in discussing Sienna's, Lauren Lavera, trauma and mental state, but I don't feel it was handled with the best care. Jonathan's, Elliott Fullam, engagement with the threat felt unrealistic. While I appreciated the bond between the siblings in Terrifier 2, they spend more time apart in this story. An off-screen kill felt anticlimactic, and at one point, the story feels like Monday Night Raw, which could easily transport some viewers out of the movie. Not me. I love chaos. The ending left me with more questions than answers, but it also left room for the story to continue. As the narrative progresses, I hope there's a stronger focus on fleshing out the story instead of merely trying to top the last film. Art the Clown has nothing to prove. Overall, Terrifier 3 is a bloodfest that will test your gore fortitude. Whether it's the severed limbs or casual cannibalism, something is sure to make your knees tingle during the runtime. It's the ultimate thrill ride for horror fans during the spooky season. How long will you look at the screen when the camera doesn't cut? Why do we go to horror movies expecting art? I've pondered this while watching Dario Argento's Suspiria, bathed in unmatched shades of color, or absorbing the ice-water crisp compositions of John Carpenter. As a survival strategy, I've trained myself to look for the artist within the abattoir, the half-buried strain of racial anxiety, the social commentary of the zombie mall, or the chill of a Tobin Bell line reading. Finding the artist makes the blood go down easier. Horror, to paraphrase Hans Ruckmacher, needs no justification. Yet it certainly helps when those creating it aspire to something greater. Terrifier 3 is not a film crafted by artists, at least not in the way that much of this year's crop, such as Longlegs, Strange Darling, and The Substance, has been. In fact, it turns the concept of art into a sick joke. The hook-nosed killer clown from all three Terrifier films goes by the name of Art. He possesses no voice, just the toothy grin of a mime long past his mild mischief days. Transformed by face paint and prosthetics, David Howard Thornton does what he can in the role. Art the Clown has a singular agenda of massacring suburban families and stalking young women, armed with a bulging sack of power tools. As the series finally settles into a Christmas movie, something clicks into place. However, it's that very artlessness that has made Terrifier a phenomenon. I saw Terrifier 3 under optimal conditions, a robust audience on opening weekend, during which this low-budget film outgrossed Joker, folie à deux. The atmosphere in the theater wasn't electrifying but rather charged with pre-nauseated nervousness. Fear, suspense, and terror aren't really on the menu for these installments. Fans know what to expect: hatchets crunching into limbs and scalps peeled like oranges. Why settle for mere decapitation when a whole body can be halved from bottom to top? The release of Terrifier 3 without a rating is a deserved badge of honor. This unspoken contract between gore-hungry viewers and the film is primarily forged by Christian Tinsley, the makeup effects artist who showcases his gushy prosthetics at every turn. Tinsley's most prominent credit to date is Mel Gibson's skin-shredding The Passion of the Christ, and you can expect a crown of thorns to make an appearance in this one, along with some choice nailings. Many times, you'll find yourself wishing Terrifier 3 would cut away to a new scene, its point excruciatingly made. No such luck. The film dwells on wounds. Chainsaws find new points of attack. At times, it feels like Tinsley's personal showcase. Do you know the name Sean S. Cunningham? It's fine if you don't. He never enjoyed the boldface fame of his peers. But following the success of Carpenter's Halloween, Cunningham assembled a bargain basement team of mostly unknowns and directed the workmanlike Friday the 13th, which remains a landmark in the slasher genre. Damien Leone, the 42-year-old Staten Islander behind the Terrifier movies, seems poised to follow in Cunningham's footsteps. He's a meat and potatoes assembler of components. Unfortunately, Terrifier 3 features a generic haunted final girl, Lavera, a psychologically broken assistant, Samantha Scafidi, and an innocent who needs protection, Antonella Rose. All these elements function to provide Art the Clown with memeable moments, with the floors slick with viscera. If you're going to the theater solely for the kills, you will definitely get your fill and more. Terrifier 3 is far more brutal than the last film, with a higher body count and meaner kills. Yet the jolly Yuletide veneer helps maintain the playfulness. Expect an excess of removed and mutilated limbs, exposed teeth and jaws, glass in crevices, rusty chainsaws, and more. One of the kills seems like a deliberate response to a previous kill in the franchise. Damien Leone's use of rats makes me believe he has a personal vendetta against me. The violence put me in a submission hold, and I often found myself at the brink of tapping out. The runtime exacerbated that feeling. Horror fans will spot various campy nods to other iconic or cult horror films. The opening scene feels reminiscent of Silent Night, Deadly Night, featuring a nefarious Santa attacking a family, one of my favorite scenes. There's also a sequence that recalls House of Wax, 2005, where the intense fear behind a paralyzed face is palpable. A nod to The Shining involving an axe adds to the nostalgia, while Art's headless adventures echo The Reanimator. A special kill pays homage to one of my favorite Jason movies, though revealing which would spoil the surprise. Plus, fans will delight in a few cameos from horror icons. The special effects, holiday setting, and dark humor work well together. However, I'm still digesting Victoria's, Samantha Scafidi, storyline. Her dialogue felt over the top and excessive, which seemed out of place next to Art's silent demeanor. Additionally, Victoria participates in self-mutilation more than once, stressing me out more than many of the kills. I almost needed a barf bag for one of these scenes. Her segments lacked the balance of humor and violence. She was simply mean. Still, I appreciated that she matched Art's freakishness. I saw value in discussing Sienna's, Lavera, trauma and mental state, but I don't feel it was handled with the best care. Jonathan's, Elliott Fullam, engagement with the threat felt unrealistic. While I appreciated the bond between the siblings in Terrifier 2, they spend more time apart in this story. An off-screen kill felt anticlimactic, and at one point, the story feels like Monday Night Raw, which could easily transport some viewers out of the movie. Not me, I love chaos. The ending left me with more questions than answers, but it also left room for the story to continue. As the narrative progresses, I hope there's a stronger focus on fleshing out the story instead of merely trying to top the last film. Art the Clown has nothing to prove. Overall, Terrifier 3 is a bloodfest that will test your gore fortitude. Whether it's the severed limbs or casual cannibalism, something is sure to make your knees tingle during the runtime. It's the ultimate thrill ride for horror fans during the spooky season. How long will you look at the screen when the camera doesn't cut? Why do we go to horror movies expecting art? I've pondered this while watching Dario Argento's Suspiria, bathed in unmatched shades of color, or absorbing the ice-water crisp compositions of John Carpenter. As a survival strategy, I've trained myself to look for the artist within the abattoir, the half-buried strain of racial anxiety, the social commentary of the zombie mall, or the chill of a Tobin Bell line reading. Finding the artist makes the blood go down easier. Horror, to paraphrase Hans Ruckmaker, needs no justification. Yet it certainly helps when those creating it aspire to something greater. Terrifier 3 is not a film crafted by artists, at least not in the way that much of this year's crop, such as Longlegs, Strange Darling, and The Substance, has been. In fact, it turns the concept of art into a sick joke. The hook-nosed killer clown from all three Terrifier films goes by the name of Art. He possesses no voice, just the toothy grin of a mime long past his mild mischief days. Transformed by face paint and prosthetics, David Howard Thornton does what he can in the role. Art the Clown has a singular agenda of massacring suburban families and stalking young women, armed with a bulging sack of power tools. As the series finally settles into a Christmas movie, something clicks into place. However, it's that very artlessness that has made Terrifier a phenomenon. I saw Terrifier 3 under optimal conditions, a robust audience on opening weekend, during which this low-budget film outgrossed Joker, folie à deux. The atmosphere in the theater wasn't electrifying but rather charged with pre-nauseated nervousness. Fear, suspense, and terror aren't really on the menu for these installments. Fans know what to expect: hatchets crunching into limbs and scalps peeled like oranges. Why settle for mere decapitation when a whole body can be halved from bottom to top? The release of Terrifier 3 without a rating is a deserved badge of honor. This unspoken contract between gore-hungry viewers and the film is primarily forged by Christian Tinsley, the makeup effects artist who showcases his gushy prosthetics at every turn. Tinsley's most prominent credit to date is Mel Gibson's skin-shredding The Passion of the Christ, and you can expect a crown of thorns to make an appearance in this one, along with some choice nailings. Many times, you'll find yourself wishing Terrifier 3 would cut away to a new scene, its point excruciatingly made. No such luck. The film dwells on wounds. Chainsaws find new points of attack. At times, it feels like Tinsley's personal showcase. Do you know the name Sean S. Cunningham? It's fine if you don't. He never enjoyed the boldface fame of his peers. But following the success of Carpenter's Halloween, Cunningham assembled a bargain basement team of mostly unknowns and directed the workmanlike Friday the 13th, which remains a landmark in the slasher genre. Damien Leone, the 42-year-old Staten Islander behind the Terrifier movies, seems poised to follow in Cunningham's footsteps. He's a meat and potatoes assembler of components. Unfortunately, Terrifier 3 features a generic haunted final girl, Lauren Lavera, a psychologically broken assistant, Samantha Scafidi, and an innocent who needs protection, Antonella Rose. All these elements function to provide Art the Clown with memeable moments, with the floors slick with viscera.